The council chamber on Axis Prime was the largest room Ambassador Lisa Park had ever entered. Delegates from 40 different species sat in curved rows that rose toward a crystal ceiling. Each species had its own breathing mix, its own temperature zone, its own way of seeing the universe. But today, they all watched the humans with the same expression. Amusement. Lisa stood at the speaking platform with Commander Jake Morrison beside her. She held a data tablet that showed images no one should ever have to see. Burned homes, empty playgrounds, bodies covered with white sheets in rows that stretched for city blocks. 3 days ago, the Kralian Empire attacked our colony world New Haven, without warning or provocation, Lisa said. Her voice was steady. But Jake could see her hands shaking. They targeted civilian centers first. Schools. Hospitals. The residential districts where families lived. 40,000 people died in the first hour. Most of them were children. High Chancellor Vex Thor sat in the central seat, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He was a Kralian himself, though he claimed to represent all species equally. His skin was deep purple, and his eyes glowed orange in the dim light. Ambassador Park, Vex Thor said, his voice carrying easily through the chamber. The Kralian Defense Forces report this was a response to human ships entering restricted space. Your colony was built too close to our borders. We had permission from the Galactic Survey Corps to settle there, Jake said, stepping forward. And even if we didn't, that doesn't justify genocide. Genocide is a strong word, Commander Morrison, said Admiral Genkar from the Vothine delegation. His species looked like massive insects, but they spoke with careful precision. The Kralian Empire has been part of this council for 12,000 years. Humanity has been here for only 200. Perhaps you misunderstand the situation. Lisa felt something cold settle in her chest. She had expected resistance, but not this casual dismissal. Not this complete lack of care. We have testimony from survivors, she said. We have communications from Kralian commanders, laughing as they fired on evacuation ships. This wasn't a military action. It was murder. You claim your evidence is solid, Vex Thor replied. But I see a young species making accusations against their betters. The Kralian Empire has brought order to 36 star systems. What has humanity brought? Complaints and demands. Jake's jaw tightened. He had served in the Earth Defense Forces for 30 years. He had fought pirates and smugglers. He had protected trade routes and rescued stranded ships. But he had never seen real war. Earth's history was full of terrible conflicts. But since joining the galactic community, humanity had chosen peace. That was about to change. An old voice spoke from the upper rows. Counselor Miralyn of the Seraphim species rarely attended these meetings. Her people were ancient, nearly extinct, and they preferred to watch rather than speak. But now she stood, her silver skin catching the light. High Chancellor, I must object, Miralyn said. There are warnings in our oldest archives about humanity. We should not dismiss them so easily. Warnings? Vex Thor laughed. And several other delegates joined him. What warnings could possibly exist about a species that barely has 12 military fleets? The Kralian Empire alone commands over 800 warships. Humanity is no threat to anyone. That's not what the warnings say, Miralyn insisted, but Vex Thor waved one of his hands. Enough. We will put this to a vote. All in favor of taking action against the Kralian Empire for the New Haven incident. Lisa watched as the voting lights appeared above each delegation's seat. 3 lights turned green. 3 species out of 40 voted in favor of justice. The rest stayed dark, or turned red. The council has spoken, Vex Thor announced. No action will be taken. This session is concluded. Lisa felt Jake's hand on her shoulder. She looked at him and saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. It was cold and hard and absolutely certain. Request to speak, High Chancellor, Lisa said. Ambassador Park, the vote is concluded. This won't take long. Vex Thor sighed and gestured for her to continue. The other delegates were already standing, preparing to leave. They thought this was over. They thought the humans would go home and accept defeat. Lisa walked to the center of the speaking platform. She stood straight and tall, though she was small compared to most species in the room. 200 years ago, when humanity first made contact with the galactic community, we made a choice, she said. We decided to learn, to listen, to be peaceful members of this council. We studied your laws. We respected your borders. We traded fairly and helped where we could. We thought we had found something better than what we left behind on Earth. The room had gone quiet. Even the delegates who had been leaving stopped to listen. But today, this council has shown us the truth, Lisa continued. You don't want justice. You don't care about innocent lives. You only respect power. And you think humanity is weak. Are you finished, Ambassador? Vex Thor asked, his voice mocking. Not quite, Lisa said. She took a deep breath. On behalf of the United Earth Government and all human colonies, I formally declare that humanity considers itself at war with the Kralian Empire. We will seek justice for New Haven. We will make sure this never happens again. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then the chamber erupted. Delegates laughed. Some shouted insults. Admiral Genkar actually applauded, as if Lisa had told a wonderful joke. War? Vex Thor said between laughs. You declare war? What will your 12 little fleets do against the might of the Kralian Empire? Please, Commander Morrison, explain your military strategy. We could all use entertainment. Jake stepped forward and looked directly at Vex Thor. His expression was calm, but his voice carried through the entire chamber. You'll find out, Jake said simply. He took Lisa's arm and they walked toward the exit. Behind them, the laughter continued. Delegates made jokes about human arrogance. They placed bets on how long humanity would last. Some thought a week. Others gave them a month at most. Only Counselor Mira Lynn didn't laugh. She sat in her seat, her ancient eyes watching the humans leave. She whispered something in her own language, a prayer or warning from a time before most species in the room even existed. As Jake and Lisa stepped into the corridor outside the chamber, Lisa's tablet chimed. It was a message from Earth. Short and direct. Authorization granted. Begin Operation Reckoning. Jake looked at Lisa and nodded once. She sent the confirmation code. Across human space, in hidden shipyards and secret bases that no other species knew existed, the real Earth Defense Forces began to move. Ships that looked civilian on the outside activated military systems that had been disguised for 2 centuries. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war everyone said would never come received their deployment orders. And in the council chamber behind them, the galaxy laughed at humanity one last time. They wouldn't laugh for long. In 72 hours, the Kralian Empire would lose its first fleet. In 2 weeks, they would lose their military communications network. In 43 days, their emperor would surrender unconditionally. But none of that had happened yet. For now, there was just Lisa, and 3 days after the council meeting, Private Connor Hayes crouched in the rubble of what used to be his apartment building on New Haven. He could hear Kralian soldiers moving through the streets above, their heavy boots making the debris shift and crack. They were laughing about something. Probably about how easy the conquest had been. Connor adjusted his helmet and checked his rifle. Around him in the underground tunnel, 20 other human Marines waited in silence. They had been hiding for 70 hours, watching the Kralians set up occupation forces, mapping their patterns and routines, learning their weaknesses. His communicator clicked twice. The signal. Time to move. The Marines emerged from hidden exits all across the city. They struck fast and disappeared faster. Kralian supply depots exploded. Communication towers went dark. Patrol groups vanished into the ruins and never came back. Within an hour, the occupation force was in chaos. But Connor knew this was just the beginning. The real fight was happening above the planet, in orbit, where Captain Daniel Cross commanded the Earth Defense Ship Vengeance. Captain Cross stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the Kralian fleet on his displays. 42 warships, each one larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity supposedly possessed. They were arranged in a standard defensive formation, protecting the planet below while more troops landed. Tactical analysis, Lieutenant Chen, Cross said calmly. Amy Chen worked at her station, her fingers moving across controls that looked simple but contained processing power the Kralians couldn't imagine. They're using Formation Delta 7, sir. Standard doctrine from their military academy. Predictable spacing, predictable coverage patterns, predictable response protocols. And their weapons? Plasma cannons with effective range of 200,000 kilometers. Missile pods with basic tracking. Their targeting systems are about 70 years behind ours. By human standards, Cross nodded. 70 years behind. That was the secret humanity had kept since first contact. When Earth joined the galactic community, human engineers had looked at alien technology and been disappointed. It worked, but it was old, slow, inefficient, so humanity had kept its best technology hidden, showing only civilian applications and downgraded military hardware. For 2 centuries, the galaxy had thought human ships were barely adequate. They didn't know about the quantum processors, the gravitational drives, the weapons that made plasma cannons look like children's toys. Open a channel to the Kralian flagship, Cross ordered. A face appeared on the screen. The Kralian commander, a female with dark blue skin and 3 eyes that glowed with confidence. Human vessel, she said in a bored tone. You are ordered to leave this system immediately, or be destroyed. Commander, Cross replied, his voice polite and professional. I'm offering you one chance to withdraw your forces from New Haven and surrender to Earth Defense Authority. If you do this, your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. You have 5 minutes to decide. The Kralian commander stared at him. Then she burst out laughing. You offer us surrender? Your ship is alone. We are 42. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your engines cannot outrun our missiles. Leave now, human, or we will add your name to the list of fools who challenged the Empire. I gave you a choice, Cross said. Remember that. He closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were calm, ready, trained for this exact moment. Tactical. Begin. Operation Thunder. Yes, sir, Amy Chen said. Engaging combat protocols. Across human space, hidden ships activated their real drives and began moving. Not the slow, careful movements of civilian vessels, but the lightning-fast maneuvers of true warships. They appeared on Kralian sensors like ghosts, moving in ways that shouldn't be possible. Admiral Zhenkar, of the Vothine species, watched from his observation ship at the edge of the system. He was there officially to monitor the situation, but really, he had come to see humanity's defeat. Instead, he saw something that made his complex brain struggle to process. The human ship didn't run. It accelerated directly toward the Kralian fleet, moving at speeds that should have torn it apart. Then, it did something impossible. It changed direction without slowing down, without following any known physics. The ship bent space around itself, sliding through dimensions the Vothine had only theorized about. Impossible, Zhenkar whispered. That technology doesn't exist, but it did exist. And now the Kralians were learning that fact the hard way. Cross's ship dodged between the Kralian warships like a dancer, too fast for their targeting systems. Behind Vengeance, 3 more human ships appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems disengaging only when they were ready to fire. Weapons free, Cross ordered. The humans didn't use plasma cannons. They used kinetic kill vehicles, chunks of dense metal accelerated to 80% of light speed. At that velocity, nothing could stop them. Shields designed to deflect energy weapons were useless against solid matter, moving faster than most species could comprehend. The first Kralian warship exploded. Then the second. Then 3 more simultaneously. They're trying to scatter, Amy reported, attempting evasive maneuvers. Predicted, Cross said. Release the swarm. From Vengeance's cargo bays, thousands of small drones emerged. Each one was barely a meter across, equipped with basic weapons and a learning computer. Individually, they were weak. Together, they were a nightmare. The drones moved in coordinated patterns, analyzing Kralian tactics in real time. Every time a Kralian ship fired, the drones learned. Every time they maneuvered, the drones adapted. Within minutes, the swarm was predicting enemy movements before they happened. The Kralian commander who had laughed at Cross tried to send a distress signal. Her communications were jammed by human electronic warfare systems she hadn't known existed. She tried to jump to hyperspace. Her drives were already compromised by nanoscale viruses that had been deployed the moment the battle began. She tried to surrender. But Cross had given her that chance 5 minutes ago. The battle lasted 17 minutes. 42 Kralian warships were reduced to debris. 3,000 Kralian sailors died. Though the humans did try to save those who made it to escape pods. 0 human casualties. 0 damage to human ships. Admiral Genkar recorded everything and transmitted it back to Axis Prime. The Galactic Council needed to see this. They needed to understand what they had dismissed so casually. On the surface of New Haven, Connor Hayes and his Marines cleared the last Kralian position. The enemy soldiers surrendered when they realized their orbital support was gone. They looked at the humans with confusion and fear, unable to understand how they had lost so quickly. "Secure them and get medical teams down here," Connor ordered. "Treat their wounded same as ours." One of the Kralian prisoners spoke in broken English. "Why? We killed your people. Destroyed your cities. Why help us?" Connor looked at the alien soldier. "Because we're better than you thought. And we want you to remember that." The news reached Emperor Craven on the Kralian homeworld within hours. His advisors showed him the battle recordings, the casualty reports, the impossible technology that humanity had hidden. "This must be their entire fleet," Craven said, his voice uncertain. "They threw everything at one location to make a statement. And well, Obno. And well." His military coordinator, a scarred veteran named Thex Vol, shook his head. "My Emperor. Our intelligence was wrong. Very wrong. We estimated humanity had 12 military fleets. We now believe they have at least 50, possibly more. And each one is equipped with technology we don't understand. Then we use more ships," Craven snarled. "Mobilize the main battle fleets. All of them. I want 300 warships, ready to jump to human space within 2 days." "Your Majesty," Thexval said carefully, "perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans offered terms before they attacked. If we contact their government and offer reparations for New Haven, they might accept peace." Craven's skin flushed dark purple with rage. "Negotiate? With a species that has existed in space for only 200 years? Never. We will crush them. We will make an example of their homeworld. Every species in the galaxy will remember what happens when you challenge the Kralian Empire." He turned to his communication officer. "Send word to all fleet commanders. Maximum mobilization. We go to war." What Craven didn't know was that human intelligence had already infiltrated his palace. They heard every word. They recorded every order. And they transmitted it all back to Earth Defense Command. In the operations center deep under Earth's surface, Admiral Kate Sullivan reviewed the intelligence with her staff. She was a thin woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat during Earth's old wars. She had hoped humanity would never need her skills again. But here she was. "The Emperor is mobilizing everything," her aide reported. 300 warships, possibly more. They're pulling forces from border systems, leaving their colonies exposed. Sullivan nodded slowly. "Then we proceed to Phase 2. Have Captain Ryan Foster's special operations teams ready to deploy. If the Kralians want to bring all their ships to one battle, we'll make them regret leaving everything else undefended. And if they come after Earth," Sullivan smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Let them come. They'll find out that attacking our homeworld is very different from attacking a small colony. We've had 200 years to prepare Earth's defenses. I almost hope they try." Back on New Haven, Captain Cross stood in the ruins of a playground. Human engineers were already arriving to begin rebuilding. The dead had been honored, their names recorded. The survivors were being cared for. But this place would always bear the scars of what happened. Amy Chen approached him. "Sir, we're receiving new orders from Earth Defense Command. We're to proceed to Kralian space and begin interdiction operations. Interdiction, Cross repeated. That's a polite word for what we're about to do. Yes, sir. Counselor Mira Lynn descended into the archives beneath her family's estate on the Seraphim homeworld. The stairs were old, carved from stone that predated most galactic civilizations. Each step took effort for her aging body, but she needed to go down there. She needed to find the truth about humanity before it was too late. The archive room was vast and dark. Crystals embedded in the walls glowed softly, storing information in ways that modern technology couldn't match. These crystals had been recording data for over 50,000 years, since the Seraphim were young and the galaxy was full of species that no longer existed. Mira Lynn approached the oldest section and placed her hand on a crystal. It pulsed with warmth, recognizing her genetic signature. Images flowed into her mind. Memories that weren't hers. Knowledge from ancestors who had been dust for millennia. She saw them. The humans. But not the humans of today. With their ships and cities, and polite diplomacy, these were older humans, wild and strange, traveling in primitive vessels that barely held together. The date stamp made her breath catch. 7,000 years ago. 4,000 years before humanity's supposed first contact with galactic civilization. The memory belonged to a Seraphim explorer named Kethrin, long dead. His ship had detected unusual energy signatures near a yellow star in an unremarkable spiral arm. Curious, he had investigated. What he found was a world covered in blue oceans and green land. And on that world were humans. They hadn't developed space travel yet, not officially, but Kethrin watched in fascination as they built crude rockets and sent brave explorers beyond their atmosphere. They failed more than they succeeded, but they never stopped trying. Kethrin had followed first contact protocols. He observed from orbit, careful not to interfere. He watched these humans for 5 years. And what he saw disturbed him. The humans fought each other constantly. Terrible wars that scarred their planet. But between those wars, they built magnificent things. Art and music and cities that reached toward the sky. They were destructive and creative in equal measure, violent and gentle. Logical and emotional. They are contradictions, Kethrin had written in his report. They destroy and build simultaneously. They hate and love with equal intensity. They are the only species I have observed that seems to contain multitudes within themselves. But that wasn't what made Mira Lynn's blood run cold. It was the next entry, dated 200 years after Kethrin's first visit. The humans had reached space properly, not with permission or guidance, but through their own determination. And they weren't alone anymore. They had encountered another species called the Vrexlon, peaceful traders who had made the mistake of underestimating these new arrivals. The Vrexlon had tried to claim human territory, thinking these primitive newcomers would accept subjugation. Instead, the humans fought back. The war lasted 3 months. The Vrexlon civilization, which had existed for 6,000 years, was completely destroyed. But the next part was what haunted the archive. After defeating the Vrexlon, the humans didn't celebrate. They mourned. They built memorials for their enemies. They adopted Vrexlon survivors and integrated them into human society. Within a generation, you couldn't tell who had been human and who had been Vrexlon. They were all just people. This species is dangerous, Kethrin had written. Not because they are cruel, but because they are efficient. When they wage war, they do so with total commitment. But when they make peace, they do so with equal totality. They don't simply defeat enemies. They transform them into allies. Mira Lynn pulled away from the crystal, breathing hard. She moved to another section, searching for more. What she found was a collection of warnings from species that no longer existed. The Thorol, the Bexvin, the Kothmara, all extinct now, but their final messages remained. Beware the persistence hunters, the Thorol had written. They do not chase prey with speed. They chase with endurance. They follow for days, weeks, years if necessary. They never stop, never quit. We thought we could outlast them. We were wrong. The Bexvin had recorded something similar. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered. Show them a weapon once, and they will build a defense. Show them a defense once, and they will build a better weapon. We held military superiority for 3 years. By the 4th year, they surpassed us in every category. But it was the Kothmara warning that made Mira Lynn rush back up the stairs, ignoring the pain in her legs. She needed to contact the council immediately. We made the mistake of killing their young, the Kothmara had written. We thought it would break their will. Instead, it awakened something in them we didn't know existed. They became something else. Something cold and precise and absolutely unstoppable. In our language, we have no word for what they became. In theirs, they call it total war. Mira Lynn emerged from the archives and activated her long-range communicator. She needed to reach High Chancellor Vexthor, but first she sent a priority message to an old friend. Dr. Nathan Brooks, a human xenoarchaeologist who had been studying ancient sites across the galaxy. Nathan received the message while examining ruins on a dead world called Prelon 4. He was a middle-aged man with dusty clothes and too much coffee in his system. He had been searching for evidence of pre-contact human space travel for years, and everyone thought he was crazy. The message from Mira Lynn changed everything. He read her findings and felt his hands start shaking. 7,000 years. Humans had been exploring space 7,000 years ago. Not 200. Everything they taught in schools about first contact was wrong. Humanity hadn't been welcomed into galactic civilization. They had been hiding in it, watching and learning. Nathan accessed his own research files. He had found artifacts on 12 different worlds. Tools and markers and small monuments that didn't match any known species. He had carbon dated them. Some were 8,000 years old. Some were 5,000. Some were only 1,000. Humans had been everywhere, watching, learning, taking samples of alien technology and bringing it home to study. They had seen the galaxy's wonders and its horrors. They had watched civilizations rise and fall. And they had made a choice. They had decided to appear weak. Nathan found a video file in his archives that he had dismissed as corrupted data. Now he cleaned it up and watched in horror. It showed a human ship, small and battered, arriving at an alien planet. The aliens were primitive, barely in their industrial age. The humans landed, made peaceful contact, and offered gifts. Technology that would help the aliens advance faster. Medical knowledge that would save millions of lives. Then, the humans left. They didn't conquer, didn't colonize, didn't demand tribute or worship. They just helped and moved on. But the video file had a timestamp. It was 4,000 years old. Nathan sent his findings to Mira Lynn and copied the message to Earth Defense Command. If humanity had been playing a long game for thousands of years, their military must know about it. He was right. In a secure facility on Earth's moon, Admiral Kate Sullivan looked at the research and allowed herself a small smile. The truth was finally coming out. Good. The galaxy needed to understand what they were dealing with. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Foster and his special operations team materialized inside a Kralian military research facility on the planet Vex Prime. They didn't use ships or shuttles. They used personal teleportation technology that humanity had developed decades ago, but kept secret. The Kralian guards didn't even see them. Ryan's team moved through the facility like ghosts, placing sensors and downloading data. They found weapon designs, tactical plans, communication codes, everything the Kralian military thought was secure. But Ryan wasn't interested in stealing the information. He wanted to send a message. His team left notes throughout the facility. Written in perfect Kralian language, each note detailed exactly how they had infiltrated. Your security camera at Junction 7B has a blind spot. Your door locks use a frequency we cracked in 30 seconds. Your guards change shifts at predictable intervals. Your air filtration system is vulnerable to our insertion method. And the notes concluded with the same sentence. We could have destroyed this facility. We chose to teach you instead. Surrender now, and we'll help you rebuild. Keep fighting, and we'll show you what we really learned over the last 7,000 years. Ryan's team completed their mission and teleported out. The Kralian soldiers wouldn't find the notes for another 6 hours. By then, Ryan would have hit 3 more facilities with similar messages. On Axis Prime, High Chancellor Vex Thor received Mira Lynn's urgent communication. He read her findings with growing unease. Then he watched the battle recordings from New Haven again. The impossible speed, the perfect tactics, the technology that shouldn't exist. He called an emergency council session. The delegates gathered quickly, confused about why they were being summoned. Vex Thor showed them everything. The ancient records, the warnings from extinct species, the evidence that humanity had been in space for thousands of years. "This can't be real," Admiral Genkar said. But his voice lacked conviction. He had watched human ships do impossible things. He had seen their weapons and tactics. Deep down, he knew it was true. "We mocked them," Vex Thor said quietly. "We laughed when they declared war. We thought they were weak and foolish. But they weren't weak. They were patient. They spent 200 years learning everything about us while hiding what they truly were." "Why?" asked a delegate from the Morthene species. "Why pretend to be weak? Why not announce their strength from the beginning?" Mira Lynn answered. "Because they learned from their own history. On Earth, appearing strong invited constant challenge. Every powerful nation faced rebellions and attacks, but appearing weak while being strong, that gave them time to learn, to prepare, to understand everything about their potential enemies. And now that we've attacked them," Vex Thor said, "they're showing us what they really are." A new report came in. 3 more Kralian military installations had been infiltrated. No damage. No casualties. Just messages left behind, detailing every security flaw. "It's psychological warfare," Genkar said. "They're proving they can strike anywhere, anytime. They could be killing soldiers, but instead, they're terrifying them." Another report. The Kralian main battle fleet was assembling at the Novara sector. 300 ships, the Empire's full military might. They were preparing to invade human space. "We need to stop this," Mira Lynn said urgently. "Contact the Kralian Emperor. Make him see reason." But Vex's Thor knew it was too late. Emperor Craven had committed everything to this war. His pride wouldn't allow retreat. And humanity knew that. They were counting on it. A human message arrived at the council. It was from Commander Jake Morrison. To the Galactic Council. "We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. We warned you what would the Kralian main battle fleet gathered at the Novara sector, like a swarm of metal locusts. 300 warships, each one a masterpiece of engineering that had taken years to build. Emperor Craven watched from his throne ship, the Imperial Glory, a vessel so massive it had its own artificial gravity and could carry 10,000 soldiers. "This is our finest moment," Craven announced to his commanders via holographic link. "Today, we crush the human infestation. Today, we remind the galaxy that the Kralian Empire cannot be challenged." His fleet admiral, Thex Vol, felt unease despite the overwhelming force around him. "My Emperor, the humans have shown capabilities we don't understand. Perhaps we should reconsider." "Reconsider?" Craven's skin flushed with rage. "We have 300 ships. Intelligence reports the humans have maybe 50 in this sector. The mathematics are simple, Thex Vol. We outnumber them 6 to 1. What neither of them knew was that human intelligence had counted the Kralian ships perfectly. Admiral Kate Sullivan knew exactly where they were and what they carried. She had been planning for this moment since the war began. She stood in the command center of Earth Defense Station Olympus, hidden in an asteroid field that no Kralian sensor could detect. Around her, holographic displays showed the entire Novara sector in perfect detail. "Status on the minefield?" she asked her tactical officer. Commander Jake Morrison, who had been reassigned from diplomatic duties to his proper role as military strategist. "Deployed and active, Admiral," Jake reported. 60,000 smart mines positioned throughout their probable approach vectors, each one equipped with learning algorithms and networked intelligence. "And our ships?" 30 vessels in position. Captain Daniel Cross commands the lead squadron. Captain Amy Chen has the second. Captain Ryan Foster's special operations teams are ready for infiltration. 30 ships against 300. The Kralians would see it as confirmation of their intelligence reports. They would think humanity had committed everything to this defense. They would be wrong. The Kralian fleet began moving. They advanced in formation, confident and proud. Their sensors detected the human ships waiting for them, and Craven smiled. 30 ships, he laughed. They brought 30 ships to fight 300. Open a channel. The communication screen showed Captain Daniel Cross on the bridge of his ship. He looked calm, almost bored. Human commander, Craven said, I offer you one final chance. Surrender your ships, and we will be merciful. Continue this foolish war, and we will reduce Earth itself to ash. Cross leaned back in his chair. Emperor Craven, I have a message from Admiral Sullivan. She wants you to know that you're not fighting 30 ships. You're fighting an idea, and you can't kill an idea with plasma cannons. Enough words. Attack. The Kralian fleet surged forward, their weapons charged, ready to overwhelm the small human force with sheer firepower. But as they advanced into the Novara sector, the first mines activated. These weren't normal mines. Each one was a small artificial intelligence, capable of learning and adapting. When the Kralian shields deflected the first wave, the mines studied the shield harmonics. When the Kralians changed their frequencies, the mines predicted the change before it happened. Within 5 minutes, the Kralian formation was in chaos. Explosions rippled through their ranks. Ships collided as they tried to evade. Their organized attack became a desperate scramble for survival. Deploy countermeasures, Thexval ordered. Electronic warfare protocols. But the human minds were networked. When one learned something, they all learned it. Every tactic the Kralians used was analyzed, understood, and countered within seconds. And that was when the human ships attacked. Captain Cross's squadron didn't charge forward. They appeared from nowhere, using the same teleportation technology that Ryan Foster's teams had used for infiltration. One moment the space was empty. The next moment, human warships materialized inside the Kralian formation. Fire at will, Cross ordered calmly. The humans didn't use energy weapons. They used kinetic bombardment on a scale the Kralians had never imagined. Tungsten rods accelerated to near light speed. The Kralian shields were designed for energy weapons. They did nothing against solid matter moving that fast. 30 human ships destroyed 90 Kralian vessels in 12 minutes. Craven watched in horror from his throne ship. How? How are they doing this? Their technology is beyond ours, Thexval said quietly. My Emperor, we need to retreat. Never. All ships, fall back to defensive formation. Protect the Imperial glory at all costs. But the humans weren't trying to destroy every ship. That would be wasteful. Instead, they were targeting specific vessels, command ships, communication hubs, the ships that held the fleet together. Captain Amy Chen commanded the second squadron, and her target was the Kralian communications network. Her ships deployed electronic warfare drones that infiltrated enemy systems through their own communications array. Within minutes, Kralian ships couldn't talk to each other. Orders couldn't be transmitted. The fleet became 300 separate ships instead of one coordinated force, and that was when Jake Morrison revealed the real strategy. All ships, open fire on their engines only, he ordered. Disable, don't destroy. The human ships switched tactics. Instead of killing blows, they targeted propulsion systems. Kralian warships went dead in space, unable to move but otherwise intact. Their crews were alive, frightened, but alive. In 6 hours, the Kralian main battle fleet was reduced to wreckage and disabled ships. Human casualties: 14 wounded, 0 dead. Kralian casualties: 6,000 dead, 40,000 stranded in disabled vessels. But the battle wasn't over. Emperor Craven still commanded from the Imperial glory, and he still had one weapon left: A weapon that violated every galactic treaty. Activate the stellar disruption device, Craven ordered. Thexvol went pale. My Emperor, that weapon is forbidden. If we use it against a human colony, we'll kill billions. Do it. If we're going to lose, we'll take them with us. The Imperial Glory began charging its main weapon. It was designed to destabilize a star, causing it to emit deadly radiation that would sterilize every planet in the system. Craven planned to target Sol, humanity's home system. He would kill everyone on Earth, and every human colony nearby. Alarms sounded throughout human command. Kate Sullivan saw the energy readings and felt ice in her veins. How long until they can fire? She demanded. 4 minutes, Jake said. And we can't stop it from outside. The throne ship's shields are too strong. Then we go inside, said a calm voice. Everyone turned to see Captain Ryan Foster on the communications screen. He was already in his stealth armor, his team assembled behind him. We tracked the Imperial Glory's layout when we infiltrated their research stations, Ryan explained. We know where the weapon control center is. Get us inside, and we'll shut it down. How? Sullivan asked. Trust me. Sullivan made the decision in 3 seconds. Do it. Ryan's team used personal teleportation to materialize inside the Imperial Glory. They appeared in a maintenance corridor, bypassing all external defenses. Kralian security systems were designed to detect ships and weapons, not individual soldiers appearing from nowhere. The team moved through the massive ship like hunters. They didn't kill unless necessary. When they encountered guards, they used stun weapons and moved on. Their goal wasn't carnage, it was precision. Ryan reached the weapon control center and placed a device on the door. It didn't explode. Instead, it sent a signal that convinced the door's computer that authorized personnel were entering. The door opened. Inside, Kralian technicians stared in shock as human soldiers appeared. Ryan pointed his weapon at the lead technician. Shut down the stellar weapon, he ordered, in perfect Kralian language. Now, I can't, the technician stammered. Only the Emperor can override it. Then we're going to visit the Emperor. Ryan's team fought their way to the throne room. They moved with surgical precision, each soldier covering the others. Each movement practiced 1,000 times. They were humans at war, and that meant they were unstoppable. The throne room doors burst open. Emperor Craven sat on his throne, surrounded by guards. He looked at Ryan with hatred and fear. You cannot stop the weapon, Craven said. In 2 minutes, your home system will be destroyed. Everything you love will burn. Ryan walked forward calmly. No. In 2 minutes, you'll be in restraints, and your weapon will be disabled. You have a choice. Shut it down and face trial, or refuse and watch while we do it anyway. I am the Emperor of the Kralian people. I don't surrender to primitives. Ryan nodded to his communications officer. Broadcast this on all channels, every Kralian ship, every Kralian world. I want everyone to see this. The signal went out. Millions of Kralians watched as Ryan approached their Emperor. Craven's guards raised their weapons, but Ryan's team was faster. Stun bolts dropped the guards before they could fire. Ryan stood before the Emperor. You ordered the deaths of 40,000 innocent people on New Haven. You tried to use a forbidden weapon to commit genocide. You're not an emperor anymore. You're a war criminal. He placed restraints on Craven's wrists. The Emperor of the Kralian people, ruler of dozens of worlds, was arrested by a human captain and his 6-person team. Override the stellar weapon, Ryan ordered his technical specialist. Done, came the reply. Weapon disabled. Charging sequence stopped with 16 seconds to spare. Throughout the Kralian fleet, commanders watched in shock. Their emperor, captured. Their weapon, disabled. Their entire military force, defeated by a numerically inferior enemy. Admiral Kate Sullivan's voice broadcast across all frequencies. To all Kralian forces. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan, of the Earth Defense Forces. Emperor Craven is in custody. Your main fleet is disabled. Your military infrastructure has been compromised. You have fought bravely, but this war is over. You have 1 hour to decide. Surrender unconditionally and face justice, or continue fighting and face annihilation. The choice is yours. The surrender took effect at midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the clock count down to 0, then gave the order that would define what came next. Begin Operation Rebuild. Across Kralian space, human ships that had been weapons of war transformed into instruments of peace. Medical frigates appeared at disabled warship locations. Engineering teams materialized on devastated worlds. Supply convoys delivered food and medicine to populations that had been cut off during the fighting. Captain Daniel Cross stood on the bridge of his ship, now orbiting the Kralian homeworld. Below him was a civilization in shock. Their emperor was captured. Their military was defeated. Their pride was shattered. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Chen said quietly, "we're receiving thousands of distress calls from the surface. Hospitals overwhelmed. Infrastructure damaged. They're asking for help. Send down all available medical teams," Cross ordered, "and get engineering crews to work on their power grid. Priority goes to hospitals and water treatment facilities." Amy looked at him with concern. "Sir, some of these facilities belong to the military. Shouldn't we secure them first?" "They're not military anymore," Cross said. "They're just people who need help. That's what we do, Amy. We help." On the planet's surface, Kralian citizens watched in confusion as human soldiers arrived with medical supplies instead of weapons. A young Kralian named Teshka stood in the ruins of her home. Her parents killed in the fighting. She expected the humans to be cruel. That's what Emperor Craven had told everyone. Humans were monsters who would destroy their civilization. Instead, a human medic knelt beside her. The medic was a woman named Kelly Foster, Ryan Foster's younger sister. She smiled gently at Teshka. "Are you hurt?" Kelly asked in simple Kralian. Teshka shook her head, too scared to speak. "I'm going to check anyway, okay? Make sure you're healthy." Kelly examined the child carefully, gently. She found no injuries, just malnutrition and shock. She gave Teshka a nutrition bar and a bottle of clean water. "Your parents?" Kelly asked softly. Teshka pointed to the collapsed building. Kelly's expression filled with sadness. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry this happened." "Why?" Teshka finally spoke. "Why do you care?" "We're your enemies." Kelly sat down beside the child. "You're not my enemy. You're a kid who lost her parents. That's all that matters right now." She contacted her team and arranged for Teshka to be taken to a refugee center. Before she left, Kelly gave the girl something. A small patch with Earth's symbol on it. "You keep that," Kelly said. "If anyone gives you trouble, you show them that. It means you're under human protection. Nobody will hurt you while you wear it." Similar scenes played out across Kralian territory. Humans didn't occupy like conquerors. They arrived like disaster relief workers, focused on saving lives and rebuilding infrastructure. It confused the Kralians. It confused the entire galaxy. On Axis Prime, the Galactic Council convened again. This time, nobody was laughing. High Chancellor Vex Thor called the session to order. With a heavy heart, "We must discuss the human situation," he began. In 43 days, they defeated the Kralian Empire. They revealed military capabilities we didn't know existed. They demonstrated tactics and strategies that rewrote our understanding of warfare. And now they're rebuilding the civilization they just destroyed. Ambassador Lisa Park stood at the speaking platform. She looked tired, but satisfied. Beside her, Commander Jake Morrison stood in full military uniform, no longer hiding behind diplomatic titles. "The Council has questions," Lisa said. "I'll answer them." Admiral Genkar was the first to speak. "How long have humans truly been spacefaring? Our records show 200 years, but Counselor Mira Lin's research suggests thousands. 7,000 years, give or take," Lisa answered honestly. "We reached primitive space travel long ago. We encountered other species. We learned from them. And we made a decision." "What decision?" Vex Thor asked. Jake stepped forward. We decided to appear weak while we learned. Earth's history taught us that appearing strong invites constant challenge. Every powerful nation on our planet faced endless wars. But if we appeared peaceful and slightly inferior, other species would underestimate us. They would teach us their technology, show us their weaknesses, reveal their strategies. We spent 200 years learning everything about the galaxy while hiding what we really were. That's deception, accused a delegate from the Porthine species. Yes, Lisa agreed simply. It was. And it saved countless lives. If we had arrived in galactic space showing our full capabilities, we would have been seen as a threat. Wars would have started immediately. Instead, we became the species everyone dismissed. The young, weak humans, who barely understood their place. And while you all ignored us, we prepared. Counselor Mira Lynn spoke from her seat. The ancient warnings were real. My ancestors tried to tell us. Humans are persistence hunters. They don't chase prey with speed, they chase with determination. They adapt faster than any species known, and when wronged, they become something terrible. But they also become something wonderful. Added a new voice. Everyone turned to see Fleet Admiral Thex Vol, the Kralian commander who had surrendered. He stood at the prisoner's platform. But his restraints had been removed at his request to testify. I fought against humanity, Thex Vol said. I lost. But what happened after our surrender showed me something I didn't expect. The humans could have destroyed us completely. They had the power. They had the justification. But instead, they're rebuilding our worlds. Treating our wounded. Feeding our hungry. They're not acting like conquerors. They're acting like people who want to make sure this never happens again. Vexthor looked at Lisa. What do you want, Ambassador Park? What does humanity want from this council? Lisa took a deep breath. We want to propose the Human Protection Doctrine. Any species that commits genocide, deliberately targets civilians, or uses forbidden weapons will face the full military response of the Earth Defense Forces. We will not tolerate the destruction of innocent life. But any species willing to coexist peacefully will find no more loyal ally than humanity. We will defend you. We will trade with you. We will share our technology with you. All we ask is that you respect life. And if we refuse? Asked a delegate. Jake's expression hardened. Then you've learned nothing from what happened to the Kralian Empire. And eventually, you'll make the same mistakes they did, and we'll be there to stop you. The vote was called. Every delegate present voted to accept the Human Protection Doctrine. Even the Kralian representatives, newly appointed after Craven's arrest, voted in favor. The measure passes unanimously, Vexthor announced. He looked at Lisa with something like, respect. Ambassador Park, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer a formal apology. We dismissed you when we should have listened. We mocked you when we should have believed. We allowed genocide when we should have stood for justice. We failed you, and we failed the 40,000 people who died on New Haven. Lisa's eyes filled with tears, but she kept her voice steady. The Council's apology is noted. Now let's make sure it never happens again. The trial of Emperor Craven began 3 weeks later. It wasn't held on Earth or any human world. Instead, humanity insisted it take place on the Kralian homeworld, broadcast to every planet in the Empire. The former Emperor stood before a mixed tribunal. Human judges, Kralian judges, and neutral judges from other species. The evidence was presented carefully. Clearly, communications showing Craven ordering the attack on New Haven. Video of civilian deaths. Testimony from survivors. Craven tried to defend himself. I did what was necessary for my empire. What any leader would do to protect their people. The chief judge, a human woman named Patricia Wells, looked at him with cold eyes. You didn't protect your people. You endangered them. You committed genocide against innocents, and then tried to use a forbidden weapon that would have killed billions. That's not leadership. That's evil. The verdict was inevitable. Life imprisonment, no possibility of release. But the sentence came with a condition. Craven would spend his life working to rebuild the worlds he had damaged, He would see the faces of the people he had hurt. He would carry stones and plant trees and help construct homes for those he had made homeless. You wanted to be remembered as a great emperor, Judge Wells said. Instead, you'll be remembered as the leader who learned too late that humanity doesn't forgive genocide. On New Haven, reconstruction was nearly complete. The cities were being rebuilt. Better than before. The memorial for the 40,000 dead stood in the central plaza, a quiet place where people could remember and mourn. Captain Daniel Cross stood there one evening, looking at the names carved in stone. A young Kralian approached him. It was Teshka, the girl Kelly Foster had helped. She was wearing the Earth patch on her jacket. "Captain Cross," she said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why are you helping us?" "We killed your people. Destroyed your colony. Why do you rebuild for us? Why do you treat our wounded? Why do you care?" Cross knelt down to be at eye level with the child. "Because we're better than what happened here. Your emperor made a terrible choice. Your military followed bad orders. But you're just a kid who deserves a chance to grow up in peace. And that's what we fight for, Teshka. We fight so kids like you never have to see war again." "But won't there always be war?" "Maybe," Cross admitted. "Humans have been fighting for as long as we've existed. But we learned something over thousands of years. We learned that the only way to end war is to make peace so complete, so total, that war becomes unthinkable. We defeat our enemies, and then we transform them into friends. It's what we did on Earth. It's what we're doing here." Teshka looked at the memorial. "I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to help people like your medics helped me." Cross smiled. "That's good. The galaxy needs more doctors and fewer soldiers." Commander Jake Morrison returned to the Galactic Council one final time, 6 months after the war ended. He stood at the speaking platform and looked at the assembled delegates. "I'm retiring from military service," Jake announced. "I'm going back to diplomatic work. Because the war is over, and now we need to build something better. But before I go, I want to leave you with something." He activated a holographic display. It showed footage from Earth's history. Ancient wars fought with primitive weapons. World wars that killed millions. Nuclear weapons that nearly destroyed the planet. "This is what humanity was," Jake said. "We were violent. We were destructive. We nearly ended ourselves a dozen times. But we learned. We changed. We became something better. And we did it by remembering our worst moments, not hiding from them." The display shifted to show the memorial on New Haven. Then it showed Kralian and human children playing together. Kralian and human doctors working side by side. Former enemies becoming friends. "This is what humanity is now," Jake continued. "We're the species that remembers. We remember the 40,000 dead on New Haven. We remember every person who died in this unnecessary war. And we remember the warnings from ancient civilizations that tried to tell you what we were capable of. The legends were true. We are persistence hunters. We never stop. We adapt to anything. We forgive much. But when you cross the line, we become something terrible." He paused and looked at every delegate in turn. "But we also become something wonderful. We become the people who rebuild, who heal, who transform enemies into friends. That's the real lesson. Not that humans are dangerous when provoked, but that humans are most dangerous when we decide to make peace. Because when we do it completely. Totally. With the same intensity we brought to war." The council chamber was silent. Then Councillor Mira Lynn stood and began to applaud. One by one, every delegate in the chamber joined her. Even the Kralian representatives stood and showed respect. Jake smiled. "The galaxy forgot the old warnings. Now you'll remember them. And maybe, just maybe, we'll never need to remind anyone again." He left the platform and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council began discussing new policies, new alliances, new ways to prevent another war like this one. And on thousands of worlds across the galaxy, humans and aliens worked side by side, building a future where the legends about humanity could finally be about peace instead of war. In a small classroom on the Kralian homeworld, Teshka sat with human and Kralian children, learning about the war. Their teacher, a elderly Kralian named Veshkor, who had fought in the war and survived, told them the truth. Humanity declared war, Veshkor said, and the galaxy realized too late what their legends had warned about. But the legends weren't complete. They told us humans were dangerous. They told us humans never quit. What they didn't tell us was that humans apply that same determination to peace. They fight with total commitment, and they love with equal intensity. That's what makes them truly special. He looked at the mixed group of children before him, human children who had lost friends on New Haven, Kralian children who had lost parents in the war. All of them learning together, playing together, building friendships that would last their entire lives. Remember this, Veshkor said. War is terrible. But peace built after war can be stronger than peace that was never tested. You children are that peace. You're the proof that former enemies can become family. Don't ever forget that. Teshka raised her hand. Teacher, is it true that Captain Cross helped build our new hospital? It is, Veshkor confirmed. And former Emperor Craven helped lay the foundation. That's justice, not revenge, but transformation. That's the human way. As the class ended, and the children went outside to play, Veshkor watched them with hope. The war had been terrible, but what came after was beautiful. And it was all because humanity had shown the galaxy something they had forgotten. That the best victory isn't the one where you destroy your enemy. It's the one where you turn your enemy into a friend. And no one did that better than humans. No one ever had. No one ever would. The legends were real. Humanity was everything the warnings said and more. They were persistent. They were adaptable. They were terrifying in war and wonderful in peace. And the galaxy would never dismiss them again. On the Imperial Glory's bridge, Fleet Admiral Vexvol looked at the tactical displays. 300 ships, most disabled or destroyed. The Emperor, captured. The war, lost. He was old enough to remember the warnings from ancient times. The stories about humans that no one believed. Now, he understood. Humans didn't wage war to conquer. They waged war to ensure such wars never happened again. Thexvol opened a channel to all Kralian ships. This is Fleet Admiral Thexvol. I am assuming command of Kralian military forces. To all ships, stand down. To Admiral Sullivan, we accept your terms. We surrender, unconditionally. The war had lasted 43 days. The Kralian Empire, which had existed for 12,000 years, was defeated by a species they had dismissed as weak and foolish. And in the command center on Earth, Kate Sullivan allowed herself one moment of relief before giving the next order. Begin reconstruction operations. Get medical teams to all disabled Kralian ships. Start planning for the occupation and rebuilding. And somebody contact Ambassador Lisa Park. It's time for her to come back. We have a peace to build. Happen. Now the Kralian Empire has assembled their full fleet. We know where they are. We know their strength, and we're going to teach them the same lesson we've taught every enemy in Earth's long history. You can't defeat humans by being stronger. You can only defeat us by being better. The Kralians aren't better. And now, they'll learn what total war really means. The council chamber went silent. 300 Kralian warships against however many human ships existed. It should be a glorious battle. The kind poets would write about for generations, but everyone in that room suddenly understood the truth. This wouldn't be a glorious battle. It would be a demonstration. A lesson written in fire and steel. The galaxy was about to remember why the old warnings existed. And, somewhere in human space, Admiral Kate Sullivan gave the order her forces had been waiting for. Begin Operation Hammer. Show them what we've learned. Cross looked up at the sky where debris from the Kralian fleet still glowed as it burned in the atmosphere. They thought we were weak. They thought they could kill our people without consequences. Now they're going to learn what humanity really is. What are we, sir? Amy asked quietly. Cross considered the question. We're the species that forgives almost anything. But when you cross the line we draw, we become something else entirely. We become what we have to be. He walked back toward his shuttle, leaving the ruined playground behind. Above, the stars waited, and somewhere out there, the Kralian Empire was preparing for a war they couldn't win but didn't know it yet. The legends the galaxy had forgotten were about to become reality. And this time, everyone would remember. Jake walking down a quiet corridor on a peaceful, neutral world, carrying the weight of a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "They're going to regret dismissing us," Lisa said quietly. "Yes," Jake agreed. "But we'll give them every chance to surrender. That's what makes us different. And if they don't surrender?" Jake's expression hardened. "Then we remind them why Earth's history is full of warnings about what humans become when you push us too far." They boarded their shuttle and left Axis Prime. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their session, already forgetting about the humans and their foolish declaration. That was their first mistake. It wouldn't be their last.